Hello, people of the internet. It is a beautiful, sunshiny Saturday afternoon here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I wanted to talk to you about metallurgy, or something I've been thinking about. I was driving back from work today in the car, and started thinking about a lot of the knives and blades. This mostly applies to blades and everything, not blacksmithing in general, that you buy today online or at stores or wherever, and started thinking about why things are cheaper nowadays and what makes, what processes go into the blades you can purchase at a store or online or anything. And this really comes down to forging versus stock removal. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, stock removal is the simple act of grinding away metal or cutting metal to get the desired shape, whereas forging is heating it up, bending it, reshaping it, thinning it out, whatever. Using heat and pressure to move the metal and shape it instead of just cutting it off. And really, for 99.9% of people out there, you won't find a difference between a forged blade and a stock removal blade now. 200 years ago, yeah, there's a huge difference because metallurgy's made leaps and bounds in the past 50 years. Especially, you think 200 years ago. Now we have very controlled alloying processes, very controlled heat treating processes. Things are very precise and very repeatable and consistent and better. 200 years ago, we didn't have, I don't think we had the best run process. That was late 1800s? I don't recall, don't quote me on that. But, we had very basic ways of manufacturing steel, very basic alloying elements. We couldn't control the amount of carbon as precisely as we can now. We didn't have the chromium, the molybdenum, vanadium, anything that we alloy now. We couldn't do it anywhere near as precisely, and we didn't have half the alloying elements we have now. So, metallurgy's made leaps and bounds. So today, by simply cutting out a piece of stock metal and heat treating it properly, you can get a really, really high quality blade instead of having to forge metal and get the grain structure to align. And that's the biggest difference. Now, there is still a difference between the two blades, and we at Black Diamond Forge Works forge everything. We forge the shape of the blade, we forge the edge geometry, and we finish it all on a grinder. Obviously, you don't want mill scale and crusty stuff all over your knife or your sword or anything. But we don't just cut the shape out and then heat treat it. Because, yeah, you can still get away with doing that, and you can make cheaper swords and cheaper blades by doing it that way. But the biggest difference is metal has a grain, like wood or wood. It just isn't as crazy and contuted. I'm sorry. It's a long time today, I can't think right. But it's not as inconsistent and crazy as the grain in wood is, but it still has a grain. And this is more, not talking raw metal you pull out of the earth, but bar stock or round stock, something you buy at the store. It has a linear path, linear grain to the way the crystals are structured inside of the steel. So when you bend it and shape it, that grain structure moves with the metal. When you cut it, it stops. So by doing that, by forging a blade and heating it up and shaping it, you move the grain structure with the geometry of the thing you're making. And that yields more strength and more flexibility. And for a knife or a sword, better edge retention. Because the metal is now shaped with the way the blade is shaped. It's not just, let me draw it out for you. It's really easy to demonstrate with like modeling clay, but I don't have any. Think layers of modeling clay. It can be different colors just to give a visual reference. It doesn't matter. If you just take a knife and you cut that clay off, the grains, the lines of clay, end and keep going the same path, but they end wherever the cut was made. If you smush it down, you can see the clay tapers with it. That's what metal does when you forge it. It's the same thing. It's just harder to see the layers, but you get the idea. So I'm going to draw just a basic little thing to show you. Bear with me for a minute. I'm by no means an artist. You can tell my drawing's not very consistent, but see the lighting, can't see anything. Okay. Here, you have what would be a stock removal edge. You can see the lines that were originally the grain structure of the steel just end abruptly. And my poor artistry skills aside, here would be where stock removal or forging would be. Everything begins to curve with the geometry of that edge. Same thing happens with knives and swords. Any shaped metal. You can have, like, think like a kukri. You just cut out the shape of a kukri. You know, you have that belly, that sharp curve. The grains are all going to be going in the direction the metal was originally oriented when you started the project. So it's not going to be as strong. It's not going to be as flexible. And the edge itself, you know, you have grain structure ending on the edge because of the way the kukri is shaped. You have an edge that's, you know, offset from the rest of the blade. So the grain's going to be ending there, and that's going to wear down a lot faster. And if it's cheaper metal or if it's just a fluke, it's going to be inconsistently sharp and could inconsistently dull itself too whenever you use it. By forging, all those grains move with it. Now, like I said, 200 years ago, this made a much bigger difference. Today, and a lot of great knives, most pocket knives and stuff you buy, nice ones like Kershaw's or Benchmade's, pretty sure most of those are stock removal, but your 1095s, your 5160s, your 52100s, all those steels you didn't have back in the day, and you can get away with cutting them out and quenching them and properly heat treating them now. Still make great knives. We just like doing things the old way, and I just want to give my opinions on this. I still think a forged blade will always be better than a stock removal blade. Yes, it's going to cost more. There's a lot more effort that goes into it. And if you do anything wrong with forging, you get it too hot, or you work it too cold, you put stressors in the metal because you are shaping the grain structure, and you can make it worse. But do it the right way, in my opinion, it will always be better than a stock removal blade because the metal now follows the shape of the blade. Feel free to leave your comments, discuss this with us. This is my opinion. I started thinking about it on the way home from work, from a conversation a coworker and I had of the CB radio. Find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, whichever one you're not viewing this on. I'm going to try and get this video on both. And hopefully we'll have some more contact up for, third time's the charm. Content. Thank you. Sorry. Content up for you. This is Chris with Blacksmith Forge Works, and I will see y'all soon.